All right, our next speaker needs no introduction. That would be me. So I'm going to give a brief update on AGL, what's been going on, what you can expect to see, hopefully the rest of the year. When Jerry first showed his slides, I said he was very young. He told me that anybody under 80 is young in Japan. And I realized that while he was talking, I even noticed when he was born was listed on the slide, and I realized yesterday was my 36th wedding anniversary, so I've been married longer than Jerry's been alive. You can do the math on what year that was. So I've been the community manager since 2014. I've worked in Linux and open source since about 2005 when I was at Motorola doing Linux Java phones. And then the reality is, if you really want to hear me talk for a long time, just ask me about my motorcycle or a motorcycle trip, and I'll talk your ear off. So 2024. So 2024 was a great year. So we had our new Flutter UI that we unveiled at CES. We released Quirky Quillback. Quillback has become our long-term support version that we're going to keep supporting, and I'll go into that in a minute. We did a great gateway and vehicle to cloud demo at Embedded World. We did Royal Ricefish, where we switched to Scarth Gap. And it turns out that AGL is pretty much always about the earliest adopter of any of these LTS versions. We launched the AGL Discord server. I'll have a link to that in a minute. And we kicked off our OSPO expert group last year. So this year, this is kind of a hint of where we are this year. So we've continued our Quirky Quillback releases, and you'll see we'll continue those through the end of the year. We released Super Salmon at the beginning of this year, and we'll continue updating that, probably till September. I think we usually do if it's not an LTS version, we tend to do about 4 patch releases. And then Terrific Trout. So Terrific Trout was supposed to be Terrific Tuna. We were going to have like the sushi bowl here. We were going to have salmon, we were going to have tuna, we were going to have unagi. But unfortunately, there was a clash in one of the package names, and Jan Simon said, no, you can't use tuna, so we had to back off the trout. And as far as I know, nobody eats trout for sushi. But anyway, so we just released last week Terrific Trout. And we'll be opening up the master branch for Unagi updates in the next week or two. Meanwhile, we've gone through quite a few events already, and our AMM is here this week. So just a reminder of kind of what AGL is overall. We started the unified code base. This is 10 years now. Trout is our 20th release. We do a release twice a year, about every 6 months, and as we've evolved this over the years, we started off with this picture would have been a lot different 10 years ago when we did the first release, Agile Albacore. But now we've got Yocto, which we've always had. We're using Systemd. We've got Flutter as well as Qt for applications. We're using Pipewire for audio as well as WirePlumber for priority management. We've got Kuxa.val that we're using with the vehicle signal specification for connectivity. We've got a whole bunch of AGL reference applications. I'll talk about that in a second. We've got AGL services that we've developed, and we package that all up into the AGL UCB. Everything we do is completely open. You can download all the code. You can play with it. You can use it on boards such as the Raspberry Pi 4 or 5, QEMU, reference hardware like our own Renaissance boards, and a big variety of things. I'll talk about RISC-V as well in a second. And we're always code first, upstream first. AGL over the years has invested in open source projects like Pipewire, Yocto, Lava, and many others. basically to bring automotive requirements into those projects. Again, going back in the day, we've used Pulse Audio for audio. We had our own audio agent. When we saw that Wim and company were starting Pipewire, we saw the opportunity to collaborate with him and basically list our automotive requirements, get those into the audio manager, get those into Pipewire. And out of that even came Wire Plumber with the priority management. So we're willing to collaborate with anybody who brings code. So in terms of device profiles, we have instrument cluster, and that's being managed by our instrument cluster expert group. There's multiple configurations you can run. You can run bare metal Linux, you can run it in a container, you can run it in a virtual machine. Same thing with our IVI reference images. Again, Flutter or Qt are available. You can run it bare metal Linux, you can run it in container, you can run it in a virtual machine. And then last year or the year before, when you get old like me, you can't remember the years anymore, we started this gateway device, which is kind of a telematics device. It gathers data from multiple CAN buses, aggregates it, and then sends it up to the cloud and to our instrument cluster and IVI devices. And that's the demo that we've been showing at Embedded World when we have our whole big green machine and things the last few years. So let's just talk about Yocto for a second. AGL is a gold member of the Yocto project, and the Yocto project and Open Embedded serve as our primary upstream. Then we add a number of user device, a number of user space packages. But Yocto project enables us to have multiple boards, enables our device profiles. We can even build multiple images per device profile, and we create all of that out of a single source tree. And generally speaking, we're tracking Yocto long-term support versions. So for us, right now, we're following with salmon and trout, and with Unagi, that's coming up, Scarthgap, which is Yocto Project 5.0. They're going to be supporting that for 4 years, which is through the spring of 2028. They release a patch update about every 6 weeks, and we try to get our update out there within a few weeks of the patch update coming out. And the same is true for Dunkirk, or Kirkstone rather, Dunkirk. I'll talk about that in a second. For reference, Scott gave a really good presentation during ELC Europe last year about how we made that transition to Scarthgap. Tomorrow, Scott has a presentation about, I don't know where they get these names, rhinos, which will be the next Yocto LTS version in 2026. And Scott basically works to keep us, quarterly, say, up to date with the latest in Yocto, so we don't have a horrible transition next year. And he'll describe what he's been doing in that presentation tomorrow. Meanwhile, there's the Kirkstone version, LTS version of the Yocto project. That was released in April of 2022. They plan to support that through April of next year. And we have been updating our Quirky Quillback, or version 17.1 version, with every version of Kirkstone as it comes out. In fact, this morning they released 4.0.28, and we plan to release our 17.1.10 in the next week or so with that update. So these are just kind of the Yocto versions that are planned through the end of this year, through the end of 2025, and we plan to get up to, oh man, that's a typo, 17.1.12 and 17.1.13. Ignore that 8 there. So, and that's the schedule for you if you're interested. Then Super Salmon. We have one more patch. Well, we did a patch release. I think we sent that out yesterday. And then we have one more update coming out in September, and that'll be our final planned salmon release. That'll have ScarthGap 5.0.11. And then terrific trout. We did our final release. We did our release on Friday or Monday. And you can see, I lost the slide, but that's okay. Oh, no, it's coming up. I'll show you the patch releases in a second. So for trout, we updated to ScarthGap 5.0.10. We had a lot of Flutter updates were pushed by Toyota in our IVI expert group. Flutter, we're now on 3.32.0. Did a lot of workspace automation improvements. We added a pre-configured Flutter image for the unified HMI. Murakami-san will be talking about unified HMI later, I think tomorrow. We have a demo control panel, which is something that you can run on a Raspberry Pi, and you can basically drive signals into our demo unit, either using CAN or Ethernet or whatever other means you might have. We added some additional signals to that. So if you've seen do we have it running this week? No? Demo control panel? No, all right. So if you've seen our embedded world demo, you can see the demo control panel. Audio, we didn't do any updates this cycle. Basically, we stuck with the version of Pipewire and WirePlumber we had. Connectivity, again, vehicle signal specification is version 5. It did not update in the last 6 months. We did update the Kuxa CAN provider and the Python SDK. Graphics, we had updates all over the place for Flutter and for unified HMI, and we had numerous BSP updates. And I should have had a QR code so you could see go right to the release notes. But that's all available in the release notes that are on our wiki page. So as we go through the rest of the year, you can see basically we plan a release. These are basically timed after ScarthGap updates through the rest of the year and into next year. And our final planned release will be right after Unagi comes out. We'll do a 20.0.5 in February of next year. So then next up is Ultimate Unagi. So our thought right now is that Unagi ends up being our next LTS version, like Quirky Quillback has been, like Lucky Lamprey was before that. That will continue to follow ScarthGap updates through its end of life in the spring of 2028. We think we'll have our first version of SODEV available in Unagi. Flutter will continue to closely follow Google's tip of tree. And Toyota is also is keeping that up to date with their internal development. And then we'll continue with unified HMI development, and Murakami-san has a talk about that tomorrow. Oops. So basically, we're looking at our first milestone in late October, and the final release in mid-February of next year for Unagi. And then, really, this will go on through the end of the year. But at least initially, these are kind of the dates that I've put down. Any dates that are next year in terms of when Yocto might release their ScarthGap. So right now, on my part, are just a guess. So. But this is what we're thinking it'll be next year. So another interesting development out there has been RISC-V. RISC-V, if you're not familiar with it, there's the RISC-V Foundation. RISC-V is an alternate instruction set architecture, or ISA, to ARM or Intel x86. And we've had RISC-V support for a few years. We started with the Sci-Fi Unmatched board Right now, we support the Star 5, Vision 5.2. They like that number 5 in their names. That BSP is available. We showed that when we were at Embedded World this year. And you can run that with Flutter or with Qt. It runs pretty well. Sci5 has a more up-to-date board, the P550. We've been working with Sci5 to get us some of those boards. So that should be coming soon. I anticipate we'll have that available for Unagi or possibly in a patch update to Trout. We'll have to see. And a few weeks ago, I occasionally meet with the RISC-V Foundation's automotive SIG. And I met with our steering committee and I met with our system architecture team and kind of created a wish list of things that we really feel that, there's a lot of talk about using RISC-V in vehicle. I know there's companies in China that are probably using it because China leads the world, I think, in RISC-V devices. But what we're not seeing really is any kind of native CAN support on any of the boards, any of the dev boards that we can get a hold of. Very minimal graphics support. Really need much higher spec SOCs in general. So we've made this pretty clear, kind of what we think. But we'll continue to work with RISC-V. It's really an exciting architecture. And RISC-V Foundation actually joined Yocto recently as a platinum member. So we should continue to see them evolve their support for Linux via the Yocto project over the next few years. And then the other thing is Zen support. If most of us are basing our assumption that there's going to need to be a Type 1 hypervisor. We're looking at Zen because it's open source, but Zen support out of the box basically to enable SODEV and the AGL reference platform. So you've heard us talk about expert groups already. We've got a number of active expert groups. This is a link to our Confluence page. It'll take you to a page that looks like this, and you can basically click through to see what each of the expert groups is working on right now. I'm just going to briefly go over what some of the expert groups are doing. You've heard a lot about the SDV expert group already, and I'm not even going to really talk about this. You've already heard about SDV a lot today. Ooh, fancy. So yeah, this is basically, this is us enabling SDV over the last few years. You can run the AGL user space in a container over the Linux kernel or on top of a virtual machine in VirtIO. It's already available. It's your choice. Pick whichever one you want. And I have a transition there that I keep forgetting to remove. So it's already available. You can download this stuff today. So this was our old version of what we've evolved to be. I left this in here intentionally. This is the old version of what we've now evolved into this idea of SODEV and the reference platform. And I even kept this line in here because when I used this slide at the last AMM. And the same thing, you can join our workshop on Friday. We'll have a workshop on Friday. We'll be talking about the SODEV and the SDV reference platform and the architecture and the work that we're going to do for the rest of the year on it. So I have a QR code in a few minutes for basically the workshop will be here and it'll be on Friday morning and afternoon. But I've got a link to how to sign up. So you've seen this already. This is kind of the overall architecture we want to get to at some point. Ishii-san, or Ambassador Ishii, as I now call him, Ambassador Ishii put together a proof of concept, and I called this the actual demo because I had other slides throughout the last few months of ideas for we called it the basic demo and the aggressive demo, and this is the actual demo. This is what we actually built at the end of the day, or Ambassador Ishii built. we did not get the Zephyr. We did not get Zephyr in there yet, but we've got all this in here, and we're running on Zen thanks to the Zen Troops guys. This is running on our car H3 starter kit plus the Kingfisher board. It's pretty cool. We're making progress. We continue to make progress, and all this is available. You could go and play with this.
It's not a white paper.
It is not a white paper. No, we don't do white papers. So I should have changed it. Ambassador Ishii completed the demo. And so really what we want to do Friday, this is what we put together during the steering committee meeting the other day, or yesterday. Time flies when you're in Germany. So we need these things. We need Zephyr on top of Vert.io. Honda's working on open sourcing some Zephyr stuff, hopefully later this year. We really made the decision that the current demo on the H3 hardware doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense for us to continue to update. Renesas in their, or in the Honda table over there, they're showing the new H4 Skyhawk? What? Sparrowhawk. I like Skyhawk better. Sparrowhawk. The new Sparrowhawk board. So we're basically trying to figure out how we're going to acquire some of those boards in the very near future. How can we get that hardware and figure out how to make SODEV run on that hardware? You can see we've already identified some of the issues. So this is pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about this some more on Friday. You're all welcome to join. It's going to be right here in the hotel. OSPO. So hey, last year, I think at the AMM in Berlin last year, we started talking about forming an OSPO expert group, and Toyota graciously offered to lead it. The Linux Foundation has numerous resources available for open source projects and OSPOs, but the steering committee and the folks at Toyota and others wanted to really focus on the issues that were, peculiar to automotive, and that's what they've been doing. Because what we found over the last 10 years of doing this is that getting code from companies is hard. When we started this 10 years ago, and even today, very few automotive OEMs or their tier ones had an open source contribution process. It's still very hard for most automotive companies to contribute code. And the OSPO expert group is an attempt to fix that and work with companies on how to create these open source contribution processes. We've had, within AGL, companies that have said they contribute code. We've had to wait at times over 2 years to see the code, or sometimes they just never figure out how to contribute the code, and we never see the code. So this is really an attempt to fix that. So Ambassador Ishii and Ito-san will have a talk later today about the work they've done in the OSPO expert group. But we've already got we've got some slide decks that are already ready. They've been really hard at work on this stuff. They've got an open source usage survey. And if I were smart, I would have put QR codes to these links. It'd be really great. I'm going to upload these slides. It'd be really great if you could go fill out this survey, because we're trying to figure out or identify what the issues are. Are you able to contribute open source code from your company? What issues are there? What are the barriers? So if you could take some time today or tomorrow or in the next week to fill out the survey, either in English or Japanese, that would be really awesome. We've got the IVI expert group, which is led by Toyota. Joel Winarska, who unfortunately could not be here this week, he is basically created this general Flutter embedder. Toyota is using that internally, and Toyota and Joel and his team continue to coordinate the open source version that we have and the internal version that Toyota is using for their production vehicles. Those guys are super busy. They're super awesome. We have a new version that's available in Trout. We've been talking about this App Store proof of concept now for a year or two. Joel is mentoring a GSOC contributor. If you click on this link, you'll see the requirements that we've got that we've been kicking around, but also our GSOC student now has a blog, and if you are on our mailing list, you'll get the weekly updates from him. We have weekly meetings of the IVI expert group. They alternate times from between a Japan-friendly time, which would be on Friday mornings, Japan time, and a European US-friendly time, which would be in the morning in the US and afternoon in Europe. So you can join either week or both weeks. App framework and connectivity. So Scott Mosley continues to monitor and attend the VSS calls and Kuxa.val. Scott's had a really good presentation at ALS on VSS usage in the gateway demo that I talked about. And we've got several companies that are talking to us about integrating LF Edge projects into AGL for this year. So these are some really exciting developments. So hopefully you'll see some of that stuff come online and become available in the Unagi timeframe. But I don't have exact details yet on timing. So I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, so we're getting there. So I know you're saying to yourself, hey, this sounds great. I want to get involved. How can I get involved? Good question. So first off, this is the workshop on Friday. You can sign up here on the wiki page. And if you don't sign up here on the wiki page, you can still come. Isn't that great? And we'll even give you lunch in the deal. How's that? How's that for a sweetener? All right. We have a Discord server. We have over 100 people participating. That's been active since about November. If you have any questions, you have any comments, you have any great thoughts, come and participate. It's really cool. Again, here is the link to the Discord server. If you can use Slack, you can use Discord. It's real, trust me, it's nothing to be afraid of. I know all the kids use it. We also, so all of our expert groups, except for IVI, who meets every week, all of our expert groups meet every other week. If you go to our mail list, you can basically sign up for the developer mail list. You can also get the calendar of expert group meetings. And we also have a weekly developer call that happens at 9 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern US time. So again, we run through the status every week of the various builds and the various things that are going on. But we also open it up to anybody who has a question, has a problem, and we try to point you in the right direction, if not fix your issue right there. But it's a really good place to get help as well. And then we have all these other resources, including our documentation site. We have a wiki page with the latest schedule and release notes. We have a getting started guide. We have a documentation page with our getting started guide. And of course, we've got an archive of video and slides from our prior all-member meetings. And we use Jira in addition to Confluence for tracking any issues. So with that, thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here all week. And we can go, the next thing we have is lunch. We did it.